Hey, how's it going, guys? It's Boo from Mile High Distilling. And last week we did a video on cuts. And like promised, today is going to be part 2 of that video. We're going to be a little more easygoing here and informative. We're still going to be informative, but we're not going to throw a bunch of charts in your face for 15 minutes straight while I talk over it. We're going to be a little more hands-on. We're going to be talking about cuts and everything involving them. We're going to be talking about when to expect them, what to do when you're there for the cut, and just general tips and knowledge. But before the video begins, I want to take a shot with you guys, okay? I want to say thank you guys so much for watching and enjoying the videos, and I love seeing the comments and you guys providing, your setups and the things you did. And you guys are just an awesome community. So thank you guys for watching the videos. I really hope you enjoy them, and take a shot with me, y'all. Thank you. Now let's first talk about what cuts are, just in case you missed that last video and don't want to go back and watch. When you're fermenting, you're creating an alcoholic solution, and some of that solution is not good. Some of it is very good, like ethanol, and some is methanol poison, basically. And of course, it's a volume, it's a solution, a body of liquid. You can't really take a pair of pliers and grab it out of the solution. It's in there, okay? So when you throw it in your still, the good news is that each of these different parts have different boiling points. So you're able to throw everything in your boiler, have it come up, start to boil, and we can boil the things we don't want, like methanol, have them come out of the still, collect them, and then watch our still get up to temperature a little further into something like an ethanol, collect that, and they're separated. It's simple as that. Now, you can't really speed run this process. You can throw this in your boiler and try to hit 175, crank your heater up, and it won't do anything. You're still going to have to hit that boiling point of the lower boiling point methanol before you can hit the ethanol. There's no way around it. So your cuts have to be made. Now, this video is just designed to help you make those cuts a little easier, help you identify where those cuts are, and just, generally try to get you on the right track. So let's start with number one, the first thing to come out of your still, and that's Foreshots. Foreshots are just vile. They're terrible by all means. Use them as a solvent, throw them on your campfire, clean with them. We're in the Mile High state, okay? We have lots of people using them for pipe cleaning and different things like that. It's up to you, but don't drink them. Please don't. And as far as Foreshots go, they're the first 250 to 500 milliliters that come out of your still. Now, the reason for that broad number is the amount really depends on your type of still. I know you can't see this full unit, but I think you can at least see this reflux chamber right here. This is a secondary chamber that's in the actual tower, and then we go into our final product condenser, our main condenser. When you have a pot still, you only have this main condenser, so basically everything's shooting up and coming out. You don't really have any sort of control over what comes out. You're getting every last bit. And that's going to end up with you coming out at about 500 milliliters worth of Foreshots. When you have a reflux still, those vapors are going to push up, and then some of those vapors are dense enough to fall back down in the boiler and reboil. So you don't get quite as much Foreshots. You get about 250. It blocks some of them from coming through. For your guys' sake, just so you know, 250 milliliters is a little over 8 ounces. 500 milliliters is a little over 16 ounces. And that makes this cut extremely easy to make. Now, I can put this 16-ounce mason jar right underneath this condenser, and this makes my 4-shot cut as easy as it could possibly be. As you know, the first things that come out of the still are foreshots. So as soon as this starts dripping, when you're beginning of your run, that's foreshots. You don't have to really put any guesswork into where your foreshot cut is. And because this is 16 ounces, 500 milliliters, I could fill this all the way up in a pot still, and there's my foreshots. That's one cut down. Or I could fill it halfway up, 8 ounces, there's my reflux cut of my foreshots. And if you're extra cautious, you can get a molded test jar like this, and you're going to get ounces as well as milliliter markings on this. So you can very simply just draw that in there, see what you're at, and just proceed from there. Now, I can put this 16-ounce mason jar right underneath this condenser, and this makes my foreshot cut as easy as it could possibly be. As you know, the first things that come out of the still are foreshots. So as soon as this starts dripping, when you're beginning of your run, that's foreshots. You don't have to really put any guesswork into where your foreshot cut is. And because this is 16 ounces, 500 milliliters, I could fill this all the way up in a pot still, and there's my foreshots. That's one cut down. Or I could fill it halfway up, 8 ounces, there's my reflux cut of my foreshots. And if you're extra cautious, you can get a molded test jar like this, and you're going to get ounces as well as milliliter markings on this. So you can very simply just draw that in there, see what you're at, and just proceed from there. So obviously with lower methanol content in your fermentation, you're going to have 1 or 2 less jars worth of heads. So we're smelling and we're tasting, and we can almost guarantee our first jar is going to be heads, full. So let's pretend we've done this once before. Let's say this is our 3rd jar down, okay? Now, if we were running a sugar and or a grain or something, and let's say we had an 8-gallon boiler on here. Well, knowing what I know about distilling, and I'm not a master by any means, but from the runs I've done, my 2nd jar is kind of a toss-up. I'm going to guess that most of this is going to be heads in my 3rd jar. But you never really know until you run, and that's what I'm saying. There's too many variables. It can't just be talked about. You just have to do. And I know how hard that is for some of you folks out there, but get your hands on a still and distill and do and see what works and you know what your still does. But I digress. Let's go back to it. 3rd jar down, and let's say most of this is heads, but I smell it, and I'm just smelling something a little different, and I'm not quite sure if this is heads or not, okay? What I can do is I can replace this for a 4th jar. Then I can take this jar that I'm unsure about, and I can put it in my fridge for about an hour. 30 minutes, I mean, I try not to be too impatient. It sucks not knowing what this is, and I'm making another cut, but it is what it is. If you're not sure, you're not sure. You got to figure it out. So you have to give this thing enough time to settle, okay? And what will happen is you'll pull it out once you feel like it's settled, and you go ahead and give it another sniff. And it's smelling pretty good to you, maybe. Shake it up, and then take another sniff. Has anything changed? Are you smelling methanol now? Well, that's heads, and the reason that works is because when you're in the middle of a cut, you're going from your heads to your hearts. Now, ethanol is lighter than methanol. So what'll happen is if they're both present in a jar, the ethanol, when it's settled, will come to the top. The methanol will be the lower down part. And so when you first take a smell, once it's settled, you're smelling the top part. You're smelling the ethanol. If you shake it and get everything mixed up, and you smell it and it tastes different, that's heads probably, okay? So you can use a small little trick like that if you're unsure of a jar. But all in all, let's pretend everything goes smoothly and you get 2 full jars of heads. And let's pretend we're in our hearts now. Hearts are going to be a pretty simple cut to make because all of your hearts, almost all, 95%, is going to be pure ethanol. So you're not really playing with anything that isn't safe to consume. You're not really worried about a certain smell. You're simply going to smell alcohol in a lot of your jars. And they might be a little funky, and that's because, again, I sound like a broken record. There can be variables. If your still is dirty, you might have something in there that affects your smell. You could have too little copper, you know, this and that and that. But more or less, you're going to smell alcohol. And if you're unsure, I recommend, now instead of just smelling, we're going to take a shot glass like this. We can put it under the still, golden tap, and just get, you know, a pure sample and taste it. And keep in mind, this is in your face alcohol regardless. You're going to come out about 140. Fuck. Now keep in mind, this is in your face alcohol regardless. It's going to come out about 140 proof in a pot still, almost 190 in a reflux still, at least with ours. So it's going to burn, it's going to bite. What I'd recommend is taking your shot glass, filling it about halfway full, then diluting the rest with water, distilled water, tap water, what have you, and tasting that. That's a little more natural because chances are you're going to dilute that 190 proof down to, you know, 80 proof. So try to get it close to a natural 80 proof, sip it then. Are you liking that? Well, perfect. You know, you're liking what you make, keep it going. No reason to stop it. And if you're not, come back in about 10 minutes, take another taste test like that. And if you're liking that, well, switch your jars out right there. Then you have the stuff you didn't much care for in one jar, and you can start collecting fresh with the stuff you do like, a really precise cut. And it's just going to continue like that quite a while with your hearts. And how much can you look to make out of hearts? I mean, let's again go off that 8-gallon figure, pretend we have an 8-gallon boiler. If you run that math and those figures, in my experience, probably about 4 or so jars. Maybe a little more, maybe a little less. You know, it's just about 4, let's say. All hearts are going to be is just taking taste tests and seeing what you like. You're going to get drunk while you do this, and there's nothing wrong with that. Just keep on taste testing. You have to. It's just part of distilling. There's not a way around it. You have to like what you make. So just keep on making those taste tests. See where that flavor changes. And if you're still liking what you do, just let it fill up. And here's also something really fun you can do. Let's say we fill up our first hearts jar and we're on to our second. Now this jar can be experimented with. Throw some fruits or some fruit juice in here. Throw some oak in here. Let it settle for an hour or so while you're distilling. You're waiting for the still anyway, just waiting for this jar to fill up, right? So have some fun and experiment while you're doing this. Not trying to get anyone in trouble here, but maybe start sipping on this while the still's running. And, you know, if you end up on the floor after this, just take it all with a grain of salt, okay? Then, of course, also in our hearts, we're going to see a higher boiling point. That's one indication we're there. And then that spirit just gets cleaner. That acetone is gone. So, I mean, it's noticeable. You know, you don't really have to explain it too much past that. It's just, it goes from having a nail polish remover smell to not. And again, if you're unsure, do what I did with those jars and have it settle and then find out yourself. Now, when your temperature starts rising and you're starting to notice your temperature move up in your still, that's a good indication you're heading into your tails. So let's talk about tails now. Tails are indicated by temperature as a main one. Okay, your temperature in your still will start to drastically increase, and there's nothing you can do about that. It's just hitting a new boiling point. Also, you know, as you proceed along your tails, you're going to start to notice a flavor difference. It's going to go from pretty good, pretty sweet, and a lot of character to sour, bitter, just gross all around. And that's why with tails, it's really important to make really precise cuts. So if you weren't drunk now, you definitely will be at this point. You're going to be taking taste tests pretty frequently. And it's really important to do this in your tails because the tails are a toss-up. So we'll get a little bit of good and a little bit of bad. And that's why we're going to have our shot glass sitting right here under this still. And every 5-10 minutes, we're going to take a little bit of a sample and we're going to see where we're at. And around our, I'd say, first or second tails jar, we're going to start noticing a little bit of a change. So if you really want, you don't want to get too drunk, go ahead and fill one up. You're pretty safe to do that regardless of what you're running. During our second jar, start getting precise with it. It's very important to do it. We're going to start noticing a flavor profile going from sweet to sour, bitter. And that's where our tails take a turn for the worst. From there, as the second you start noticing that flavor profile, switch your jars out. Go one to the other as soon as you notice. That's going to be your most precise tails cut you can make. Now when this starts getting bad, you have a choice. You can choose to continue running and collect that alcohol, which you can throw into a later batch and clean it up, turning it into something good, which I definitely recommend. And if you're sick and tired of it, go ahead and shut the still down. Just cut it off right there. Your run is done. Congratulations. If you choose to continue to collect. At this point, it doesn't really matter what you're smelling and tasting. Just continue to collect. You still want to do a little bit of tasting, and you're going to notice a difference between actual tails, and then you're just going to end up tasting water. That's when your still is spent, it's called, and that's when I would just shut it down regardless. But continue collecting, taste testing every once in a while. When you start noticing water, call your run done. And congratulations, you guys just finished your first run. Good job. I'm glad I was here for it. So all in all, let's say you had an 8-gallon boiler when you were doing this run. You should end up with around 10 to 12 jars. And from there, you can choose to blend, which will be a later video. But the act of blending is taking some of your tails and mixing them in with your hearts. You're just doing taste tests. Tails number 3, tasting it. Hearts number 2, tasting it. I like those. I'm going to mix them in together. So with blending done, you have completed your actual last step for your entire run. And if it's your first time, congratulations. Good job. From here on out, enjoy the spirits you've made. Play around, anything you don't like, clean up, develop different ways to change what you don't like. Adding glycerin, a finishing formula, can sweeten things up if it's not sweet enough for you. Add some essences to change some flavors. Run it through carbon to clean it up and make it have less of a bite. So all in all, this is where the actual funnest part, at least for me, with distilling begins. Anyways, I wanted to thank you guys once again for watching. We really appreciate all the love you've been giving us. We love seeing your comments, so be sure to leave some more for this video, just explaining how you liked it, or if you have different things you do for your cuts, let us know. We love interacting with you guys. And be sure to like and subscribe if you want to see future videos. We have a lot more content coming out. Thank you guys so much.